I'm Beth Kincade, and welcome to the Sports Whip. Can you believe we're already 2 months into the college football season, and it is flying by? Stay tuned as the boys recap some key matchups and review this weekend's big games. Plus, you'll want to hear their picks for the Heisman.
Welcome to the SMC Newsroom. This is the Sports Whip. I'm Alex Lake alongside David Henson, Jason Smith, and Dom Rodriguez. Guys, we're going to go ahead and dive in there. Big game this weekend. Bobby Petrino and the Razorbacks came in here and took a loss 30-17. Jevin Sneed had his first 300-yard game in his Ole Miss career. What made you? What was the key factor for Ole Miss getting a big road win? Home win.
I thought the biggest factor of the game was definitely the offensive line. Third week in a row, they didn't allow a single sack, which is really big, and allowing Jevin to sit back there, throw the ball, get comfortable in the pocket, and also opening holes up for Dexter to run through.
I thought a huge key to the game was the play calling of Ken Austin and Houston Nutt. They really diversified it. You know, they were going over the middle more, finding creative ways to give the ball to Dexter McCluster, and then the trick plays with Jevin.
Yeah, definitely for me, getting McCluster the ball, giving it to him often and early, and that's what they did. And you can see his results: 256 total yards offense for Dexter.
Another big game this past SEC weekend was Tennessee-Alabama, where Tennessee came up a little short in the late seconds. What makes this such a big game for Alabama going into their bye week this weekend?
I think this was a big win for Alabama, mainly because it was the first game that they've really had a fight all the way through the game. You know, it was a close game, and we saw that Alabama can do what they need to do to win the games.
I thought it was big for Terrence Cody, kind of national coming out party for him. Two block field goals, and then Mark Ingram kept doing what he's doing. But Alabama has to find a way to get Greg McElroy to get some more consistency.
I'm going to kind of step away from what you guys said. I definitely think it's more Alabama can be beat, and I would talk about this with Florida too. You know, Tennessee played a great game, and there was little dispute of whether there should have been a penalty on that last field goal block. He had his helmet off, and I'm not going to get into all that, but I think it shows that Alabama, is not this all-powerful team that is unstoppable. I think they can be beat.
Another undefeated team this past weekend was Florida going into Starkville and taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, which was actually a pretty close game to some people's surprise. Mississippi State came up a little short. Another undefeated team with Florida. What makes this such a big win for Florida?
Well, I think something about Florida it shows Tim Tebow's human. Throwing 2 interceptions, both while they were going in to score, and one being returned for 101 yards for a touchdown. So it definitely shows, just like Alabama last week, it showed Florida has some weaknesses too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. Tebow, I'm sorry. He definitely struggled, and Mississippi State, Florida's defense definitely came up strong. State only scored 6 points offensively, and Florida's defense is definitely the strong point of the team, but they need to find a way to get Tebow and the offense rolling.
Agree with what you guys just said, and like I said a second ago, it shows you that these two unbeatens, Alabama and Florida, do have weaknesses, and they can lose any Saturday. So.
And then we're going to start to preview a couple more games coming up this weekend. The big game that everyone's talking about is, of course, the Rebels going on to the plains of Auburn, Alabama, playing Gene Chizik and the Auburn Tigers. What do you think Ole Miss has to do to minimize this Auburn seemingly powerful offense?
I think they have to do what they've been doing. Stopping the run with the defense that they have, and the offense the past 2 weeks has been scoring points. They've been moving the ball, so just keep that up. Auburn doesn't have a great defense. They're 11th in the SEC, only behind Arkansas. So this is another week that we can hopefully build up some steam for the offense going into the rest of the year.
Well, Auburn's really struggled this season, or at least lately, with the passing game, but their rushing attack has been consistent all season long. But that kind of plays into the strength of the Ole Miss defense in stopping the rush. And I also think that Houston Nutt and the Rebel offense are going to pull a few tricks out of the bag, kind of counteract Gus Malzahn's offense.
Yeah, well, just going with what you said, Jason, Auburn did have I always liked their run game in our past pick'ems, but if you looked at the game against LSU, they only had Tate only had 67 yards rushing. So I think Ole Miss needs to kind of take a look at see what LSU did. That powerful offense that they do had only put up 10 points against LSU. But I think, like you said, if Ole Miss's defense can shut down that Auburn run game, it should be a good win for the Rebels.
And then the big national matchup of the week, is going to be USC going into Oregon with Matt Barkley has the handles of the USC offense. What makes this such a big game nationally? But again, you have Matt Barkley going to a pretty good Oregon team that has that one loss against Boise State.
Right. Talking about that Boise State loss, everyone wrote Oregon off after the first week of the year. Since then they've been rolling. They haven't slowed down, and they're up to 10th in the nation now. So I think this is a big game for both those teams. And, I think USC's already lost, Oregon's already lost. It'll be an interesting game for the whole national to see.
Well, Mazzoli and the Oregon offense just look pathetic against Boise State. And like you said, they've picked up where they left off from their bowl game last year. And they should give USC a good game. But I think Joe McKnight and Barkley, just Damian Williams and the rest of the USC crew is going to give them too much to handle.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely going to be an interesting game. Both teams are 6-1. Both teams they've beaten ranked opponents. They score I think 31 and 34 points a game. But a little interesting fact I actually heard the other day is that USC hasn't won in Oregon since 2005. So that might play a little bit into this game, I guess, if you want to look at it like that. But I think in the end, like you said, Jason, USC is just going to be too much for Oregon to handle.
Then kind of the big matchup overall, what everyone else is talking about is the Heisman matchup this year with no one really stepping up. Of course, you have the Colt McCoy for Texas, Mark Ingram for Alabama, and Tim Tebow for Florida. Who is y'all's pick to win the Heisman, and why do you think they will eventually end up getting it?
I think it's going to be Colt McCoy. I think that they're undefeated right now. After this week, again, they go at Oklahoma State. After this week, their schedule just gets easier. He's been up for the past 2 years, and I think this is the year. Tebow hasn't had as many stats as he's had in the past, and I think Colt McCoy got it.
McCoy's definitely had a good season. His passing completion percentage is off the charts. But if you look at the way he throws the ball, he doesn't throw it downfield very often. Most of those completions come within the 5-yard range. So I'm going to go with Mark Ingram if Alabama can win out. Ingram he almost put up 250 yards rushing against South Carolina. He's been impressive all season long. If the sophomore can keep it up, I think he wins.
Yeah, I like Colt McCoy too. He just seemed to be such a productive player for the past couple of years, and like you said, it seems like it's his time.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, you'll see who we picked this weekend. Stay tuned. This is the Sports Whip.
QEP, Quality Enhancement Plan at the University of Mississippi, a program aimed at improving student writing, to reshape the composition curriculum, improve and expand the Writing Center, and provide more support to teachers of writing. Right here, right now. QEP, Improving Student Writing.
And now we're going to go into our Pick'em segment. The game that we've been talking about was USC going into Oregon. What's your pick for this and why?
I'm going to go with Oregon. I think like we said earlier, USC hasn't won at Oregon lately, and I think that streak continues.
Oregon.
Eugene's a really tough place to play, but I think Pete Carroll and the Trojans are going to pull it out.
Yeah, I like USC.
Of course, the big game that everyone's talking about is Ole Miss going into Auburn. What is your pick and why?
I think Ole Miss's defense is too strong for Auburn's running attack, and I think Ole Miss wins.
Ole Miss.
Auburn's offense has been really limited lately, and I think the Rebels are going to look at enough tape to figure out how to stop it.
I like Ole Miss in our defense against that Auburn offense.
Then, of course, you've got Tim Tebow playing host to the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend. What's your pick in this big rivalry game?
I think Florida's just too dominant. Georgia's kind of having a down year, and I pick Florida.
Florida.
Georgia's been way too inconsistent this year, and that Tebow and the Gators are going to pull it out.
I like Georgia.
And then, of course, our last game with a lot of national issues has Texas and Oklahoma State, with Colt McCoy coming into Stillwater, where Des Bryant is ineligible to play for the rest of the year. What's your pick in this big matchup?
I think this is the last real challenge this year for Colt McCoy in Texas, and I see them going through and winning.
Texas.
Des Bryant is one of the best receivers in college football, and his absence is going to really hurt Oklahoma State. I'm going with Mac Brown and the Longhorns.
Yeah, Oklahoma State has never beat Mac Brown, so I'm taking Texas.
And we're done right here.
That'll do it for us here at this Sports Whip. Be sure to check us out on the web at www.thedmonline.com. For Alex, Jason, David, and Dom, I'm Beth Kincade, and we'll see you next week.